The pre-UFC 300 trash card extravaganza continues, and last night was no different, was it? With UFC Vegas 89, a mid-event with mid-fighters and a mid-co-main event and some mid-level fights. The most interesting thing that happened was Igor Severino bit Andre Lima. Bit him hard and grabbed him on the groin. You know, the good old dick twist on the groin, man. Can you believe it? I've gone back and watched it since it happened. What a wild turn of events. Let's talk about it, and let's talk about the punishment that followed it. Yeah, like if you were Dana White, what is the appropriate course of action for something like this? Okay, the kid, he's a decent kid. He's got 8 wins in a row. Yeah, he's chewing through the competition. He's 20 years old. Never been beaten or bitten. He's the perfect up-and-coming prospect for the UFC. You know, he has never tasted defeat. And this disqualification, is going to be super hard to swallow. Now, Igor, he gets into a super scrappy fight, right, with Andre Lima. But Andre Lima is cheating a bunch. Yeah, he is constantly grabbing the fence, constantly grabbing it. And the ref is doing nothing about it throughout the entire fight. The ref was Chris Tognoni, and Chris Tognoni was just staring at him, fence grabbing the entire time, not doing anything about it. And to be fair, right, in Chris Tognoni's, defense, he doesn't have to do anything about it. I don't know why fans seem to get upset about fence grabbing, but like fighters are obviously allowed to do it. They have never ever been penalized for fence grabbing. I mean, go back, right? Sean O'Malley literally beat Petr Yan and was able to fight for a title because he was constantly pulling himself up off the bottom position. So obviously Chris Tognoni isn't going to stop fence grabbing in this fight. It seems to be perfectly legal and acceptable in MMA, but there's this rumor that's going around in the MMA community that referees are actually meant to stop fence grabbing, and it's like illegal. And quite frankly, this is the reason that we need to fight misinformation online. This reason right here. Because when you have online misinformation and the fans and the fighters think that you're not allowed to grab the fence, then you get some fighters like Igor Severino, they get angry when the opposite fighter, Lima, is grabbing the fence a lot and the referee, Chris Tognoni, is doing nothing about it. And then they get so angry that they just go ahead and bloody bite someone. A full-on Yoel Romero celebration, just the And I thought this was mixed martial arts, right? I thought all of the old mixed martial arts are allowed to be used, like the ancient move of Bai Tang. But, okay, enough fucking around. Okay, the bite itself, it was vicious, okay? He got this damn good chunk of tricep, and it left a mark, like a top and bottom teeth, almost immediately. It was so bad, okay? And seriously, how do you fight? Like, how do you handle something like that? Because a bad bite can really hurt the fighter going forward. Like, a human teeth bite can actually cause an infection and can really be a hindrance in a fighter's career. Like, if they get a terrible infection, that can mess up their career, essentially. So it is something that is serious and needs to be addressed by the UFC in some way, right? And then not only that, but to break the rules in such an egregious way to bite another fighter in the middle of a fight shows that you have a lack of emotional control in a situation that requires a lot of emotional control. Yeah, like we are having controlled violence here. That is the point of the sport. If you cannot control your emotions while you're having this scrap with somebody in a way where you're going to go ahead and bite them, maybe you shouldn't be here. Okay, now I know that they're cage fighters, and not only are they cage fighters, they're cage fighters from a very low socioeconomic graphic part of the world, right? And they are fighting for everything. Their entire lives are in this fight, and that's what makes this sport so exciting, because we are watching people, especially when they're coming up, where every single fight and every single minute in the fight matters. At least it should to them. That's why we get so angry at these fighters when they don't try. And now we have something on the complete flip side where he almost tried to win too much. So we, the fans, us, MMA, the UFC, we're trying to create this environment where we want people fighting for everything that they have to make it as exciting as possible but also there needs to be a level of control as well, and we are trying to constantly tiptoe that line. And last night, that line was chewed through. Some of this has to be on the ref, Chris Tognoni, okay? As much as it's like, it's the UFC, man, you're allowed to grab the cage. No one stops it. As much as that happens, right? Cage grabs are illegal in the sport. And to allow it to go on to such a point where it would piss the other fighter off so much that he feels like he has to do something and take it into his own hands means that maybe Chris Tognoni should be facing a fine or a penalty or something from the UFC to be like, mate, you cannot let this go on to such a point where the other fighter is essentially feeling helpless and needs to take matters into their own hands. But if you were Dana, right, how would you handle this? Okay, so Igor's been cut, fired. He can't go on. But I have no doubt at all that the PFL are going to see this and in 6 months' time, sign him up and say that he's learned his lesson, he's willing to move forward, everyone deserves a second chance. Like, watch his career closely. He is going to be in the PFL. He was a great young prospect. There's no way the PFL are just going to let that sail by. If you were Dana, again, like, how would you handle it? Some people might suggest that maybe there should just be a fine on his next purse, or fine him from this purse, ask him to pay the money back, like literally issue him a fine, or maybe suspend him for 12 months so that he can't earn any money. And that way you still keep this great athlete on the roster, but you still send a message to the rest of the boys in the locker rooms, Chael would say, that you can't be doing this. This isn't a thing to do. Especially since we've seen moments like this before. Not as bad, but we've seen moments like this before. Like recently, the biggest one that comes to memory is Michael Chandler shoved his fingers in the throat of Dustin Poirier to try and crank the hand back so he could get a guillotine. And Dustin bit down on Chandler's fingers, right? It's not like we're going to cut Dustin Poirier from the UFC because of that, is it? And also, Dana White literally trolls the globe on his YouTube channel, Dana White Looking for a Fight. Trolls the globe looking for young and hungry fighters coming up through the rankings. And he got one that was bloody starving, mate. And you went ahead and cut him? It seems a bit excessive, Dana. I mean, Daniel Cormier scraped the eyeballs out of the greatest heavyweight of all time, Stipe Miocic. And the UFC went ahead and put him on the commentary desk. But Igor, he gets a bit nippy and he's out the door. Not fair, mate. Also, right, on another serious note, by cutting a fighter for biting, you're setting a precedent throughout the rest of the squad. Like, what you've done here by cutting this fighter is to do it to send a message to the rest of the 700 athletes on the UFC roster. And you have just said, there's a way out of your contract here, right? Like, Conor McGregor notoriously wants to try and wrap up his UFC contract so that he can go and get some boxing money over in Saudi Arabia. Yeah, he wants to go fight Manny Pacquiao for a sweet $50 million, not fight Michael Chandler for $5 million, which is, fair enough for Conor McGregor. But Conor McGregor is wrapped up in his UFC contract. So imagine, right, Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler, they're in the octagon, right, eyeing each other down. They've touched gloves, everything's ready to go, fight's on. And Conor McGregor just spits out his mouth guard and goes, come here, baby, and charges at Michael Chandler. He could get out of his contract that way, just by biting him. Now, he'll never get sanctioned in the US again. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see if Igor fights in the PFL. But it's a way to get out of your contract. And I don't think the Saudis care about, the Nevada State Athletic Commission's decision on fights. I think they'd be quite happy to let Conor McGregor go boxing over in Saudi Arabia. So you've essentially told every single fighter on the roster, if you want to get out of your UFC contract, you'll just have to chew your way out. Right, there we go. We actually got a post-fight night wrap-up out of what might have been just a continuation of a horrible, horrible run of Apex cards and UFC fight nights as we lead up to UFC 300. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead, hit that subscribe button down there. Let me know in the comments if you were Dana White, right, and one of your fighters actually did bite someone, what is the right way to handle that situation? Is cutting them the right way to go about it? If you like this video, leave a like, and of course, I'll see you all in the next one.